Welcome to the March 9th meeting of the Lawrence Alliance for Education. I'd like to open the meeting with the pledge to the flag. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we'll begin with public comment. Just a reminder, please state your name and address for the record, and remember the 2-minute time limit. The first name on our list is Mr. Molly.
Mali, 53 Chester Street. In this critical time, we the citizens pray for peace for Ukraine, for oppressed people of the Ukraine, and then we want the world unite to fight this brutal power and occupation. Lawrence Public School, with the impeccable leadership by Honorable Superintendent Cynthia Paris, moving forward. Our teachers, because of pandemic, working so hard, continue education of our children. Lawrence teachers and their union deserve the best contract. The great leader, such as Horace Mann said, the founder of the public education, that education indeed the most important equalizer in our society. In order to see the best impact of education in our city, we must support Lawrence teachers and union. Our citizens very upset by listening to our Lawrence Public School paraprofessional painful testimony of their hardship because unequal pay. We demand the best compensation for Lawrence Public School paraprofessional. We demand our Lawrence Alliance for Education direct communication with Massachusetts governor to get past pandemic assistance and support for our teachers and paraprofessionals. Million thanks to Lawrence Public School nurses, the true first responder in this war against pandemic. We the Laurentian proud to support our teachers and their union. Teachers are the true architect of the best future for our children. We demand our Lawrence Alliance Education communicate with Massachusetts governor and legislation to free past pandemic funds to help our teachers and paraprofessionals. In this great era of the pandemic, we the citizens are united to turn around our public school and demand with one voice best contract for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molly. Our next speaker is Kelly Stanwiski. I'm sorry if I...
Oh, that's okay. Yes, I was here to speak to lift the mask policy. From what I've learned, Commissioner Riley was granted authority by the Board of Education to institute a mask mandate for all mass schools. The approval was renewed several times, always with an end date stated. At the end of the last extension, which ran out on February 28th, renewal was not sought and the mandate expired. The memorandum regarding the lapse does not mention local control as an option, although the prevailing thought seems to be now the school committee have the responsibility and the right. They did say maybe under, like your city ordinance or mass general laws, but everything that I've read shows, that I feel like you guys don't even have the authority to be voting on this. There was a letter sent out. We've been told to follow the science. This was from the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. After consulting with medical experts and state health officials, the commissioner will not renew the state mask mandate after it expires. So they are consulting with medical experts and state and health officials. Right now, the CDC website has Essex County at low for risk. That basically is determined by looking at the hospital beds being used, the hospital admissions, and the total number of COVID-19 cases. I think the masks definitely hurt a lot of students in Lawrence, being English as a second language. They can't see mouths, they can't see faces, they haven't seen their classmates in 2 years. I really think it should be back in the parents' to decide. You know, we've put this fear in kids. I feel like let the parents decide if they want the masks or not, but I feel like it should be a choice at this point. By masking our kids too, it also has stopped their own immune system from recognizing these viruses and learning how to fight them themselves. We have the test kits that are available, we have vaccinations, and even the test kits that you are handing out, it does state right in the directions, if it's positive, it might not be positive. If it's negative, it might not be negative. So we're following these test kits. You know, I say, give it back to the parents. And that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Kelly, before you're seated, would you please state your address for the record?
Sure, 47 Hamlet Street, Lawrence, Mass.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker is Jean Zimbruski.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address the group tonight. I am Jean Zimbruski, as Pat said. I'm president of the Lawrence Administrators Association, and just to qualify, we represent assistant principals, deans, and supervisors. One of the concerns that we have had for a while now, but more recently, is that a lot of our administrators are leaving Lawrence to go to other communities and work there, and it's happening too often. It's a big concern. These are veterans, these are people who have worked with our students, who understand the urban district and what is required of them, and as I said, I'm seeing more and more leave. I want to go back to some of the reasons, and one of them is our contract. We started contract talks in September. We had a number of meetings. It really was just talks. So what we're doing is we're asking that the central office begin to negotiate with us. We had to stall them. It seemed that things were just, there was a refusal to go any further, and it was just a waste of everybody's time. I will tell you, to advocate for administrators, they take on multiple roles daily, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's stepping up with parents and playground. They are doing more than that is expected of them, and they're fine with that. But we find that we are not getting the respect. I mean, there's no recognition of what's happening with our administrators. There's no compensation whatsoever. I've approached central office a few times, and that was just denied. So I think we need to rethink that to keep the people that we have working with us successfully. And again, I'm asking to kind of reconsider some of this. We, as an association, are willing to step up and do whatever's needed to work with administration, to work with the board, to kind of come to a win-win situation for all of us. Our administrators are committed to being here. They want to be here, but honestly, they're just looking for some respect and, again, compensation for the hard work that they do every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. That concludes our public participation. And for those watching us via media, all of us have received any emails or messages that were sent to us at our email address. They've been sent to us by Maria, and we all have read them. I would like to continue with the superintendent's report, and at this time I'll turn it over to the superintendent for her teaching and learning section.
Thank you. In a moment, we're going to hear our teaching and learning report, and we'll be reporting on Acceleration Academy that we hosted during the February break. We'll also get an update on our multilingual department. And while that's getting set up, I wanted to share with you all that in the past week and a half, we've been working with our school leaders and the teacher leadership teams on our budgets. That process, as you remember, started back in December and has had several weeks and months of planning. Those meetings included very, very detailed and thoughtful goals that schools have been drafting. They come to us and share their school-wide goals that are connected to the budget priorities that this team voted on back in the fall. They then go through their staffing and then share operational plans and ultimately also advocate for the needs of their schools, their students, and staff. I wanted to share some patterns that were seen in the past week and a half. And these are tied directly to funds that we had talked about as a community, specifically the ESSER funding and SOA funding. SOA funding, 2 years ago, we designed a plan that included additional supports for students. And with the ESSER funding, short-term interventions is also applicable to the things that were discussed during these planning meetings. What we saw during the planning meetings was that many schools and teacher leadership teams were advocating for additional interventionists, which is very appropriate and a very good use of short-term monies. In addition, they advocated for instructional coaches. So what we see is both student-facing supports are being requested in the form of interventionist and supports for the teaching staff so they can also develop their skill sets. The other thing that we saw as a pattern during these meetings is the co-teaching model. We're quite pleased that many of the teams were very, very happy and requested additional co-teaching teams, both for special education and for our multilingual learners. This pilot started in earnest 3 years ago under the leadership of our Assistant Superintendent, Mary Toomey, and we've worked really hard to provide additional training for teachers to be able to do effective co-teaching models. And then Ken Foley, our director of the multilingual department, also has been working with teachers in order to do that co-teaching model for those students as well. So those are some of the highlights of the meetings that we had in the past week and a half. The next steps in this process is that we're going to be meeting as a leadership team to review every single meeting, every single request, and from there continue to build our budget internally. In 2 weeks, we will have completed our budget book, presented to you all in budget hearings in the month of April, and then moving forward to the City Council for a final vote. So we look forward to coming back to you all with the full budget and then answer any additional questions that anybody will have. So next, I hope that we have queued up our teaching and learning report in a moment. If not, we can move things around. Let me know where we are, Dave. How about this? I'll have Odanis Hernandez jump in here, and we will move into the OPS vote.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, board members. I'm here before you tonight, or we're here before you tonight, to seek a vote to rename the Oliver Partnership School back to its original name, the Henry K. Oliver School. This is to align with the new construction, the project, and to bring back the name, and considering that it will become a K through 8th school.
Thank you, Adonis. I'll entertain a motion to rename the Oliver Partnership School back to the Henry K. Oliver School.
Second motion.
The mayor has made a motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Naomi. Any discussion? Maria? Any discussion? Naomi?
No?
Mayor?
No.
I just, if I may, I just wanted to add that the idea here is, as you all know, this project is a very exciting project. And the two schools that are merging, both the Oliver Partnership School as well as Up Oliver, are two very distinct schools. Mm-hmm. In order for us to create the coherence that we're seeking, which is the K-8 model, the name change is symbolic to that new move to have coherence for families. The other thing we thought about is sort of the longevity of a name. And so right now, the use of the word complex as an example is in vogue, if you would, and very trendy. but we're going to outlive these names and the buildings themselves. So we want to keep something that lasts for a very long time. And we thought it's appropriate that we go back to the Oliver Henry School.
Thank you, Superintendent. We'll call a roll for vote. Maria?
Yes.
Naomi?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Odanith.
Thank you.
Next, we'll do the school choice, and then we'll jump into the teaching and learning.
Okay.
So school choice, I should have pulled my language here, is something that we bring forth to you on a yearly basis. And I've provided additional documentation. You'll see that in your documents there, the big black and white cover here that you see. Nothing new has changed in the past year since we have been discussing this topic, but just so that you know, school choice is a participation of districts. In the past 4 years, I've asked for a vote no on this because, in summary, we do not have sufficient space. So the way this works is if there is a family requesting to join our district, we have to think about, do we have space in our school? And if so, then we say yes to that choice, meaning if we were a school choice, and then tuition is given to us. It works both ways, sending and receiving districts. We have never participated, or the last time that we participated was a very long time ago. So for those reasons, I ask for a vote no to not participate in school choice.
All right. Do you want this in the form of a motion, Superintendent? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to not participate in the Massachusetts school choice.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Any questions by the board? Hearing none. Maria?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a tricky one.
I am voting no.
Okay. Naomi?
No.
Mayor?
No.
And the chair votes no. Thank you, Superintendent.
Great. Next, we're going to have our report in teaching and learning with Assistant Superintendent Melissa Spash and Acceleration Academy update.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Hi, Board. So this is a joyous thing to present on because it was a really great week. My colleagues and I were able to go to all 23 sites that were hosting the schools. We had over 2,000 kids involved, so it was just a wonderful time to see all of our kids in classrooms and learning well. So we'll go over, Dave, if you can go to the next slide. This is sort of going over the highlights for both the February and the April Acceleration Academies. The focus this year, we decided to really move towards continued academic and social engagement, understanding that our kids kind of haven't had this opportunity for over a year, and wanted to make sure that certain students who might benefit from being in class then should be prioritized, as well as just intensive small group instruction. And then learning acceleration, which we talked about was really using data to inform where we're targeting instruction for our kids. We also expanded the program. We added K1 and 2, so that was a 633 student increase, and we added grade 9 to February Academy, which was 15% of the grade 9 enrollment. We ensured there was social emotional staff at every school. That was a wonderful addition that the principals and facilitators were really grateful for. And we added pretty much at the request of folks, if they had a vision for broadening the multilingual classes or special education co-taught classes, we opened those up as well. Next slide. The program overview, these are held in both February and April. February has a literacy or English language focus, and April has math and science. In both of those for high school, we do credit recovery and additional supports, academic supports. They're 5 days long. It's a long day. They go from 8 to 3. And again, they're small classes. They're about 12 to 14 students per class, and they all have specials during the school day, 1 or 2 blocks of specials. Again, we had social emotional supports, and then we give incentives for full attendance or for being there for the day, for the whole day. We gave away Chromebooks or iPads, Bluetooth speakers, which are fun, as well as Red Sox tickets. We get to go back to Fenway to enjoy the Red Sox in May. And Target gift cards. Kids love those. And then lastly, we gave transportation or provided transportation for anybody who receives it during the normal school year. To see our enrollment allocations, you can see them here by grade band. For K-2, which I mentioned was an added element or expansion of the program, there were 528 students allocated to that, or 19% of the total enrollment for K-2 in the district. For 3 to 5, you could see there, we have about 3,000 kids as of October 1, and we had 672 spots. And you can kind of see it's level loaded, where we have all the grade bands pretty equally represented, for a total of spots that we offered up of 2,332, or 20% of our student body. For staffing, we had around over 350 teachers and paras and nurses and folks working this academy over their vacation, and paid out stipends around $1.2 million. This is a wonderful opportunity for staff to get this experience with students in a small group setting. It's a very happy time, and it really does kind of provide an additional opportunity for many staff, as you can see. We wanted to share some examples of student schedules. You can see on the left the early childhood, which if you kind of go through the detail, it's a mix of kind of smaller times to meet kind of where our kids are and attention spans at that age. There's a lot of movement, a lot of art. There's literacy as well as mindfulness, time outside, play. It was a really active and engaging time. It was beautiful to see folks doing yoga, literacy, small group. It was really very fun. In elementary, you see the same thing, but a little bit more condensed, longer blocks of literacy as well as specials and movement. And then you can see the high school and middle school models on the right. The big message here is there's a mixture of offerings that we provide, and it's got a lot of, excellent focus on social emotional as well as instructional. We wanted to share just a few viewpoints into what kids did this week. Here you can see from the LAE School, they made a rainforest. That was in their cafeteria and hallways. And so the first and second graders did that. Here's Gilmet Middle School, grade 8. They had a theater class where they literally designed their own lighting. That's on the right. And you could see, we blocked out their faces, but super happy kids on the left with their 8th grade ELA teacher. And lastly, this is in LAE grade 9. They're working on gene editing through a CRISPR lab. That was something that folks brought in there, and the kids were deeply engaged and just loved the experience. And Jeanette, the principal there, says that there's now 15 kids who want to have careers in biotechnology, which is exciting. So our kids had rich experiences. I think our staff did too. It was wonderful. And we look forward to April, as the superintendent said.
Thank you, Melissa. I'll open it up to any questions. Maria?
I don't have any questions.
Naomi?
I have two questions. Thank you for the presentation. It seems that you guys have fun that week. I wish I could have been there too. I have two questions. The first one is, was the program at full capacity?
So we had 2,332. We had 2,075 on the final rosters. So that means we offered 2,300, and we were able to fill 2,075 seats. So slightly less than what we had planned for, but still very robust.
Okay, and then
And it was 85% attendance.
that's great. And then the other question is how parents learn about this opportunity.
I think it's something that parents are very used to. We do it for a long time. But we do message, we do all calls. That's mainly led by the schools themselves, who do heavy recruiting. The kids know about it, they hold assemblies about it, and they communicate directly through email, through text, as well as through presentations to the students who go home kind of excited about it. But it's widely spoken about for over a month before the acceleration actually happens.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll add, Naomi, that because we have been offering acceleration academies for the past 10 years now, it is tradition right now, if you would. And so the teachers do an excellent job at identifying students and start recruiting them and communicating that to families with the rest of the staff. So it's a very one-to-one recruitment where first the teacher identifies based on data, then they give those numbers and those names to other folks and staff members, and then the recruitment with the family one-to-one starts.
So there is a criteria,
Correct,
okay.
correct. We
Okay.
use data to say the following students should be invited to participate. And then we open it up a little bit broader, but there's very specific data, student data, for invitations to participate.
Is that based on academics?
Sure, it's based on academics, social, emotional, there's lots of components all
Okay.
around. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mayor, any questions?
No question.
Melissa, I just have a question. Did you mention attendance, what the percentage of attendance?
Sure. 85% of the roster, so meaning of the 2,075.
All right, and was there any more additional recruitment during that week to get the kids that didn't show up to come?
So yes, there's a very specific role, the clerk as well as the facilitator. Call families, they're very proactive, they partner with families to help get kids in. So there's active recruitment during that time. And there was a wait list, so if somebody couldn't make it for some reason, they would add people from the wait list. So people take filling the program very seriously and work with families to make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I do have a follow-up question. Now that you mentioned the waiting list, how big is the waiting list?
It depends by school.
Okay.
It can be anywhere from 6 to 20 is what I saw in this year's data by school.
Okay,
Yeah,
Per
it really
school.
depends by school. They track their own waiting list.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Superintendent?
Thank you, Melissa. Absolutely.
First of all, can you hear me? Sorry, okay, there we go. So apologies, I didn't account for the weather today, so, but I was able to listen to the whole meeting to date on Zoom. So just curious on this last piece, in terms of, so February happened and now we're doing April, correct? And I'm just wondering if there've been any adjustments or just based on the experience in February, if there are any particular changes you're thinking for April?
We're really excited to continue the expansion, K2. I think the focus is going to be, it's math, so I think we might focus on some of the power standards in the MCAS test. But to be honest, we were really pleased with the February program, both with the recruitment and the work of the schools as well as the academics that occurred there. So I think we will circle back, but at this time, those are the main pieces.
Great, and just if I could, just one more question, like the career component that you mentioned, you know, like that was pretty neat. I mean, just seeing kids being exposed and excited. I'm just wondering to what degree that is something that, you know, you all are thinking about for April, if this board or others. I mean, it just seems like a really great opportunity to get kids excited about professions, exposure, connections, even if it's pretty early on in their lives. It just seems like a great opportunity.
I agree. I think it was something that Principal Jimenez from LAE put together. So each school may investigate different opportunities. I think it's fantastic and very appropriate to link, especially with math and STEM, to real life. So I guess I could say right now we open that up and our you know, we would be eager to connect students to that and have a career focus. That was something that Principal Jimenez put together.
I do have one more question. This is very exciting. The students that are on the waiting list, would they be given the opportunity to participate in the next round? Would they get priority, or how would that work?
I think as Superintendent Paris said, we'll go through the data exercise again, both looking at the math data this time and science data this time. And there'll be a new waiting list that opens up. But of course,
Okay.
students are, also, oftentimes parents will reach out and say that they have an interest. So the waiting list gets generated again as we move into the April Academy.
Great. So at this time, Pat, thank you so much for, by the way, probably one of the most efficient meetings we've ever had. And I wasn't here, so I'm just saying, I'm not drawing any conclusions, but thank you for stepping in. Great. So I will turn it back to you, Superintendent, for the last few items on in your report.
Thanks, Melissa. Great. Up next, Kenan Foley will give us a presentation on our multilingual learner department.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Kenan Foley. This is my colleague, Julissa, who's going to be talking a little bit about family engagement. This will be I haven't presented to the board. It has been disrupted for the past few years because I usually present in the springtime. So this is going to be a really exciting kind of broad overview. Obviously happy to answer any questions as follow-up. So we can go ahead to the next slide, Dave, thanks. So first, you might notice a difference. We changed the name of our department and everything internally to Multilingual Learner. Many districts and other states are making this shift just as more inclusive terminology. So that's just a nomenclature note that we are the Multilingual Learner Department. Internally in Lawrence, we'll start to embrace that new name. There are some items, the federal and state legal definition is English learner. You might remember that it used to be limited English proficient. That was deficit-based, so they switched to English learner. Now we're realizing that that's also a little deficit-based, especially with the introduction of new types of bilingual programming back into Massachusetts since the passage of the Look Act. So you will still see English learner on any kind of state or federal initiatives or guidance, but internally we have made the conversion to multilingual learner. So our department has expanded, which is incredibly exciting. Again, my name's Kenan Foley. I'm the director of multilingual learners. This is my 9th year in this role. We have 2 wonderful multilingual learner facilitators, Lori and Julissa. Julissa is a former LPS student. We have also added just this year, a family engagement specialist for our department to support initiatives around multilingual learner families. That is Yomira, who is with us today, also a former LPS student and LPS teacher. And so our department centrally is really small, as you can see, for the over 5,000 multilingual learners that we service. And that means that each school has a robust multilingual learner team that supports the services, programming, and initiatives at their school. So that usually consists of principal, a coach, assistant principal, or a dean, the language acquisition team facilitator, ESL teachers, and of course, at the center of the work, students and their families. So I know, I think you have a copy of this presentation because the names are the school abbreviations are a little small, but this is our enrollment as of our March 1 SIMS data. You can kind of see it disaggregated by school with the district in the middle. We are at 37%. We had a slight decrease last year due to the pandemic and some reduction in immigration patterns, but we always hover 34, 35, 36, about a point increase a year. And then you can see how that's distributed across schools. And LAE and International, with serving 100% of their students, are classified as multilingual learners at the top. And you can see the spread. One item that we wanted to highlight for you today, and that Julissa is going to talk a little bit more about, is an increase we've seen in the enrollment of students from Central America. This is a pattern across the state, and you can see those numbers. So those are students who have enrolled with us in the 21-22 school year. And that's an increase from what I would call our last typical year, which was 2018-2019. I'm going to pass it over to Julissa to talk a little bit more about our family engagement initiatives.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Julissa, and I am one of the EL facilitator and also doing family engagement with our team. Our English Learner Parent Advisory Council is a fully active group. And what is LPAC, you may ask and wonder. They're parents or guardians of children who are learning or have learned English, ESL, in our district. The LPAC group can advise the school district and the school committee about issues related to children who are learning English. All families of multilingual learners, both current and former, are welcome. We meet monthly, and this year our meetings have been focused on increasing the LPAC presence in our district through the school communication tools, WhatsApp, Facebook group, and LPS webpage. We're planning for and providing ESL parent classes and community resource for all of our families, learning about restorative justice at Lawrence High School, planning events for our EL families. Our next meeting will be held at the Lawrence Public Library on April 5th, and you're all welcome to attend. Our next thing that we're working on, our LPAC and our ML department, is hosting for the first time a new event called Movimiento Multicultural. And this event is focused on celebrating the different languages our families speak, as well as welcoming all of our ML newcomers into our district. This event is going to be held on May 26th from 5 to 7. Our motto for this night is, dance is one language we all speak, and bailemos una sola lengua. There is more information to come on this event, again, and where the location will be at as well. The second family engagement initiative I would like to share with you today is our Central American Family Outreach. We have been making personal connections by doing personalized calls and home visits. As you saw on the previous slide, we have seen an increase of students entering our schools from Central America compared to previous years. We're tracking the needs of our Central American families in our community to finalize focus and support groups for these families and their needs. And currently, we're hosting 3 ESL courses for our ML parents. 2 classes are held at the North Comet Educational Complex, and the other one is held at the Partham Elementary. And our child care has been provided for all these families through our LWFI partnership. Thank you, and I'm gonna pass it back to Kina.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to briefly update you on some professional development initiatives and then some broader initiatives happening under our department. So in terms of professional development, our department hosts monthly ESL teacher PLCs, professional learning communities, with our partner Sarah Otto from Confianza. We also host bi-monthly ESL teacher check-ins, bi-monthly LATF, so that's the language acquisition team facilitator at each school that I mentioned was on the team. Weekly SEI teacher courses. The Sheltered English Immersion endorsement is a requirement for licensure since 2013. We had a heavy push to train all of our teachers, and we continue to offer courses for new hires. We also, as Cynthia mentioned, are a part of the co-teaching initiative with the Office of Student Support Services. So this year we added 6 ESL teachers that are dedicated co-teachers across schools. We also were excited to offer a professional development series. We've had 1, we are about to offer number 2 and 3 in the series for paraprofessionals who work with our multilingual learners. We are also going to pilot learning walks with our language acquisition team facilitators and those school-based ML teams. And last but not least, we are currently hosting, just kicked off this afternoon, an MTEL study group for our teachers who are on a waiver or on emergency licensure to try and help them with that credential. So we have 2 large initiatives coming down the pike in our department that are at the very early stages, but both incredibly exciting, and I'm excited to come back and tell you more about them as the plans get more finalized. So the first is a comprehensive newcomer program for grades 7 to 12. So that would be the merger of our 2 current high school newcomer programs, Enlace and International, and phasing down to 7th grade. And that would be a comprehensive 7 through 12 program for students newly arrived to the country. The timeline for that is that right now we are working with teams from both International and Enlace and a task force to come up with a draft plan that we will be sharing with the superintendent in the spring. We will then spend the next year planning and having work groups and stakeholder engagement, and then the program would launch in September 2023. The second incredibly exciting initiative that we are in the early stages of planning for as a result, as I mentioned, of the Look Act being passed in 2017 is a dual language program. We completed a feasibility study last year that recommended we implement a strand, which means 2 to 3 classrooms at a school of dual language one-way immersion beginning in kindergarten, and that would be a K through 8 trajectory. We would hope to launch this program in the fall of 2024. The timeline for this initiative is in November. We submit a preliminary draft plan to the Department of Education. In January, they give us feedback. All programs have to be approved by the department. We would submit a final proposal in January 2023, and then spend about 18 months really planning and hiring for this program with a launch again in September, August 2024. You might have received a PDF. We can share the PowerPoint version, but this is actually from one of our Title III after-school programs, Being Bilingual is a Superpower. But last year, we did start to do some initial work around educating different stakeholders about what is dual language. So on this slide, I included both an English and a Spanish voiced over PowerPoint that kind of walks through what is dual language, why is it important, what does the research show. So if you are interested in learning more, we'll be sure to get you the PowerPoint version of this so you can actually watch the videos, because I don't think they will run on the PDF. But happy to answer any questions, and that is our final slide.
Great, thank you. Open it up to board members. I'm still in the habit of doing like roll call just because when we were online, but I guess anyone can just, whoever has a question or comment. I don't know. I thought you were saying something. You don't have to.
I am curious about, so Kenan, what's the sort of, like, when students are coming in as a multilingual learners, right? What are kind of our goals, or is there a certain time frame within which we want them to become English fluent? I guess that's one question I have. And then the second question is, do we do anything along the lines of, like, because being bilingual is a superpower, right? But that means helping people hold on to and improve in their native language as well, right? And I'm wondering, like, what we do to support those learners in, like, holding on to and advancing in, let's say, Spanish, if that's their native language, as well as, becoming more fluent in English.
Sure, thank you. So for the first question, research shows that a typical student will achieve English proficiency between 5 and 7 years. So Massachusetts uses 6 years as the goal. So we would expect that a student would achieve English proficiency in 6 years. As for native language support and supporting bilingualism, that's exactly why we're looking to open this dual language program. We do have some schools that have a heritage Spanish course, schools that have L1 literacy intervention for SLIFE students with limited or interrupted formal education, but that's definitely something that we believe in, which is one of the reasons that we are working to develop this program where students would become simultaneous bilingual in that program.
So could you just speak a little bit more about the dual language program and what is one-way immersion?
Sure. So dual language, you can have two-way immersion or one-way immersion. In a two-way immersion program, 50% of the class has to have a different native language than the other 50%. So we would have to balance it with 50% of students who are English-only speakers and do not speak Spanish. So when we looked at the data with someone working with us to do the feasibility analysis, and because we are neighborhood schools, it would be really tricky to strike that balance. So when you don't have that 50-50 balance, it's technically a one-way immersion program.
Okay, got it. And then, like, do most of our multilingual learners hit that 6-year mark? Like, are most people becoming proficient within the 6 years?
So unfortunately, accountability has been a little messy, as you can imagine, the past few years. prior to that, we were meeting our targets for accountability. So that's the percentage of students meeting their progress target on the access. So DESE has a super complex formula where they say, okay, Kinnan, you came in, you took the access exam and you are a 2.0 and it's your first year. We want you to achieve proficiency in 6 years. Here's what you need to score next year in order to stay on track. That would be my progress target. And then what the department does is they set targets for districts and schools about the percentage of students meeting those targets.
Gotcha.
So we were meeting our targets set by the department, but always looking to increase that number. Our the last year we were close to 43% in our K through 8 meeting their targets. So not necessarily achieving proficiency, but that's where the data comes from.
Right.
And I think 38% at the high school, but that was both above the department's threshold for us.
Okay, so in both, like in K through 8 and at the high school, like less than half the kids are meeting their targets?
So that was about 3 years ago, yes.
Okay. And do we have a sense of why I mean, that seems low to me, but I don't know whether that's good or bad, but like what's?
I think there are a ton of factors. And I would have to go back and look at how DESE calculates like what our target should be for meeting, because actually like accountability, I agree with you that those numbers, we absolutely want to see them higher. But we met the target set for us by the department, so we were increasing every year.
Okay.
So I'd have to go back and look at how the department calculates the formula, but yes, of course, that's too low, but we were making progress prior to the disruption, and we're excited we will have that data back again this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Pat, go ahead.
Yes, Ken, and thank you for your presentation. I love the idea of the multilingual learner. I just think it's super to change that to that term. But I have a question about the staff. Are there any new requirements from DESE as far as staff working with the multilingual students? Like I remember staff needed to be SEI trained. Has anything else changed in addition to that?
That is the only, since the rollout of retail in 2013, all teachers that have an English learner in one or more of their classes, multilingual learner, have to earn the SEI endorsement. So that continues to be the only shift in terms of qualifications for ESL teachers. And as I mentioned, as we get new teachers and new hires, most ed prep programs provide that course, but we continue to provide that course for teachers who don't have it.
So is it roughly what percentage of teachers are SEI trained and certified?
Oh, 99%.
Okay. All right.
We have new hires, we have people who somehow missed it, maybe came from another state, and those are the educators that we offer the SEI course to for free in the district. Of course.
I do. Thank you for the presentation. I do have a question, and it's related to the dual language program. And you mentioned that you already have hired the staff to start the program in the fall. Is that?
No, the program planning and hiring would take place after it's approved in January 2023.
Okay. And then do you have an idea of how many additional teachers will that require?
Yeah, so depending on the number of classrooms, really the model is adding a co-teacher in a simplistic term. So if we have 2 kindergarten classrooms in our initial strand, we would add 2 FTEs, 1 co-teacher for each of the K classrooms that has a bilingual endorsement. As we phase up, it would be adding 2 FTEs each year. At some point, with the growing of the program, there might be an additional FTE, like a curriculum dean or someone to oversee the program as it grows in size. But initially, that's just a 2, or depending on the number of classrooms, 1 FTE per classroom.
And you will need also then the curriculum developer and follow the standards with DESE and all that.
Correct.
Separate, in addition to the rest. Okay. Thank you.
Nomeni?
So, how does this program help students stay focused on the rest of the subjects like math and science while still prioritizing learning English?
Sure, the dual language program. So depending on the model we choose, many of those content areas will be taught in both languages. So it's the wonderful thing about a dual language program is it kind of takes ESL, or English as a second language, out of a silo, and language acquisition gets infused across content areas. So they might, there are many different models, and we're far from deciding that, but they could have 1 week in English, all of their content areas, 1 week in Spanish. They could have 50% of the day in English, 50% in Spanish. We could start the year with heavier L1 support, their native language, so 70% Spanish and transition. So there's just so much research behind a student who is literate in their native language more easily transfers information and learning to the second or third language that they're learning. So it's a great question, and that's the whole purpose of this, is to infuse language across the content areas.
Thank you.
Of course.
Great. I have a few questions. One is, and I should know more about this, but like talking about the, I don't know if it's a dual language diploma or when the Look Act was passed, like what that allowed for.
The seal of biliteracy.
Seal of biliteracy, thank you. Can you just talk a little bit about how that, one, is going here and like how that factors into to our programming?
Yep, so it's primarily, we inform all students of it. It's primarily based at the high school, obviously, because it's awarded upon graduation. And similar to CDs over the past few years, they've changed quite dramatically. So there have been a lot of changes to the criteria for awarding the seal of biliteracy. But every student that's eligible, we encourage them to take the native language assessment to earn that if they're not enrolled in an AP Spanish course, for example, because you can qualify both ways. Information sessions, it was last year, the prior year, we tested on Saturdays. So it's going well. I can get you the numbers of students, but again, just because the competency determinations have changed, so have the criteria for this program, so the numbers aren't necessarily consistent from year to year. But I can get those for you.
That'd be great, thank you. And then the other question is, really excited, slide 8, just seeing, and maybe I'll ask questions around the dual language program in particular. I think one is maybe I'm just asking you to help the board understand also that, and I'm not as like up to date on research for dual language programs and things like impact on test scores and things like that. My hunch or my memory is that as students are developing fluency in both languages, you may not see the sort of impact on test scores. And let me just say clearly, I think that's fine. I don't think that's the priority here, but I guess I just want to ask you if that's accurate, and more than anything, sort of prepare us to say, look, this is an investment I think we're making because it's the right thing for our kids, full stop. And if we need to be prepared for outcomes being, sort of showing up differently than only sort of standardized tests, I just want the board to be prepared for that, because I think it's important to think about, again, how we're measuring progress and of the program, in addition to the ways that, we're going to be held accountable, and we are held accountable as a district.
Yeah, of course. I definitely encourage everyone to watch the video that we created for staff, for families last year in English and Spanish. There is one nominal study that is often cited for dual language programs where the students, it was a widespread study, and I can find it and send it to you, where the students it speaks to what you're talking about, became on par with their peers who were not enrolled with the dual language program by 5th grade, and actually exceeded their scores on standardized tests by 7th grade. So while it might not initially show that, it did show that those students who were consistently enrolled in a dual language program over time outperformed their counterparts on standardized tests. So I can find that study and send it to you.
That'd be great. And again, it's just from a vantage point of, again, I think it's the right thing to do for our kids, and I'm glad we're doing this. It's just managing expectations, in terms of what we're going to expect to see, and to be okay saying what you just said, like, we may not be until fifth grade, starting with kindergartners and then eventually surpassing. But I think it's just helpful for folks to, again, manage our expectations.
Yeah, and we already, last year when we started some initial outreach around the feasibility study, there's a lot of history of bilingual education in Lawrence, and frankly, our families, there was a lot of negative connotations with bilingual, with the old transitional bilingual programming. That's one reason why we created the video, to kind of differentiate and talk about how this is different from bilingual programs that were in our city decades ago. That some families were a part of and have negative feelings towards.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, just because, for folks who may not be as familiar with that, including myself?
Sure, yeah. So I wasn't here when they existed, but anecdotally, when we did family focus groups, they felt ostracized. They were Spanish speakers, so they were all put into one classroom with not necessarily the right supports, not the same rigorous content. This happened across the state, not just in Lawrence, but I think we have families that actually participated. So that's definitely one trend that we saw as we did a family survey and family focus groups last year, which again is one of the reasons why we created that presentation, to kind of differentiate and explain more about the new program. And we look forward to doing more of that work as we begin our planning, really.
That's great, thank you. Other thoughts, questions from board members?
I just want to piggyback on what you said, Ventura, because I do think that's an important point, and I feel like, I don't know if this is the right analogy, but it's analogous in my mind to somebody who grows up bilingually, because they might have parents who speak two different languages, and one parent will speak in one language to them and the other parent in the other language, and those children will often start to speak after, like, someone who's just learning one language, but then when they do start to speak, they're becoming fluent in both languages. So I think we have to be prepared for like a delay in gains, but then to see better gains because of an investment like this. So I'm super excited about this program. I think we need something like this, and like all the kids should take it, because everyone should be fully bilingual and literate in both languages.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so I am going to move us to the mass guidance discussion and vote, and appreciate, as Pat said, all of the comments that we received in advance to the LAE email account. We also got some direct emails that were then shared and forwarded, including a letter from one of the school committee members. So really appreciate that, and also the public comment that that folks delivered tonight. As we start, I just want to acknowledge we have Mike Armano and Martha Velez who are here. Mike is a director agent of the local Board of Health, and Martha is the Health and Human Services Director. So just thank you for being here tonight. Not sure if there's anything you wanted to say. I would love to also, if there is, great. And also just to have you on hand, maybe by the podium, as board members would have questions related to the topic. So thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Superintendent, board members. Mike Amano, Director for the Board of Health, and with me is Martha Velez, Director for Health and Human Services. I just wanted to give you a quick, very quick, brief summary. Thank you for having us this evening. We're happy to answer any questions. Just to give you some summary of what's going on, and for the members or of the community who weren't part of our previous meeting, the City of Lawrence currently has vaccinated 75% of its eligible population. We've had almost 40,000 COVID-19 cases to date. As of this month, I'm proud to say, with our younger population, 5 through 19 years old, we're down to just one case for the month of March, which is fantastic. Our 30-plus population, our most vulnerable population, is almost 100% vaccinated. We still continue to vaccinate our youth and anybody who missed the vaccination every day. The mayor is committed to keeping Lawrence safe and healthy, and we're fully ready to support the vaccination effort for the few months to come. We have testing that the Commonwealth is committed to keep 2 testing sites in Lawrence till May 15th. Only Springfield will also have 2 testing sites, and there'll only be, I believe, 7 others throughout the Commonwealth, so we're excited to continue the testing. We currently test about, I'd say, over 200 tests per day, so Lawrence still is testing for COVID-19. And just a quick comment, obviously we had an order for masks in the city. We had lots of long discussions with Martha, the Director of Health and Human Services, and the Mayor, and the Board of Health, and we're fully confident that now is the time to see the masks come off of our faces. We did have in the order a progression of taking the masks off when we reached a certain point based on medical data. That point was 10 cases per day and a positivity rate of under 4%. We achieved both those marks last week. We're now, again, probably fewer than 2 cases a day, and last reporting period positivity rate was in the 3s. So again, we will continue to test, to vaccinate, and be available for any questions from our community members every day. I just want to throw this number out there for those of you who are not vaccinated. We do have an at-home vaccination program. We're committed to go to your house if you need to get vaccinated. And just by simply calling our phone number, which is 978-857-3409. I'll say it one more time, 978-857-3409. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Cynthia, Superintendent Cynthia Paris, and the board. I just want to add, ditto what Mike said. We've had a long battle. We've, come out on the other side. We truly believe, because of science and what we see, and we all need mental health, wellness, it's time to take off our mask and see each other again and be with each other. But the most important thing, as Mike said, the mayor is committed. The city bought rapid tests for residents to make sure that they're safe to go back to work, to go back to school, to do the normal daily task. So if you're looking for a rapid test, I did bring some. They're here. And we also have them at the City of Lawrence, the center, 155 Haverhill Street. And you could definitely come by and pick it up. And we'll be there from 8 to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, and we're here to serve you. So, thank you. Para las personas que hablan español, es importante que sepa que el alcalde ha trabajado muy fuertemente para estar seguro que podemos quitarnos las máscaras y podemos trabajar para hacer la ciudad, para regresar a lo que era la ciudad de nosotros, poder estar con nuestras personas. Si usted necesita una prueba, un examen de la casa, por favor pase por el centro al 155 de la Haverhill Street o nos puede llamar al 978-620-3550 y estamos ahí para servirle. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the board members, and just board members, just to be clear, what's before us today is this board is, as a governance board, responsible for the policies as it relates to the school district. So that's why we're here, and I think we've had some discussion, but really this is an opportunity for board members to, if you have comments, questions as it relates, and then at the end I will be asking for a vote one way or another, and the way I see the options are, we continue with the current sort of status quo, or I think we continue with an optional, mask wearing policy where people can choose to wear a mask or not, and it's really dependent on the individual and the families. So, but I will open it up. First of all, thank you so much. The information just really, really helpful, and the information that you all released last week from the city was also really, really helpful. We, as the LAE, wanted to wait till today just to make sure families or other stakeholders had a chance to weigh in. We appreciate the folks who have, but I think, we have a lot of information that you all have provided and we've seen, so thank you very much for that. I will open it up to board members now. Questions, comments, generally, if you don't mind, if we can direct, if there are questions, we would be happy to direct them to you as well, Mike and Martha, but I'll open it up to board members at this time. Please, Mayor.
Yes, I want to say thank you, Mr. Mike Amano and Martha Vele. You made great job for the city of Lawrence. My responsibility and my job is keep the community safety. I think it's the right moment for remove MAC. because the number said everything. And in one opportunity, the past administration take a big challenge because need take many decisions about the issue, about pandemic, but I think the number speak everything, explain everything. Number is down. I think it's not necessary. It's include the school because kids don't use much in the street, in the park, in house. I think is the people continue follow the recommendation about kid social distance, sanitation, and another issue about the coronavirus is a pass. It's the moment to take the right decision. My recommendation in this case is return to the normal life, but it's a responsibility to the board take a tonight decision about student, and that's all I want to say tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Noemi?
Yes, I want to say thank you for the information and the reports. It's really well presented, and as somebody that was formerly a research, I really appreciate how you summarize information, and from that perspective, it's true. We should go with what the data says. And so I don't have a question, it's just like reinforcing what is being said, and I feel that it is time for us to follow up the guidance of CDC and public health in the same way that we did it when we were in the middle of the pandemic, and we have to make all the necessary precautions in order to keep our city safe. So thank you for the report.
Thank you. Just looking across the table. Jess, go ahead.
No, I thank you to Mike and Martha. This was really helpful and really good information. And I just also wanted to say thank you. There were a lot of teachers and parents who've, personally given me feedback about this. And although it wasn't unanimous, I think sentiment is strongly running in favor of removing the masks. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the people who weighed in on this through whatever means. It's not an easy decision because we want to keep everybody safe. And I do think, if we vote to make them optional, which I would be in favor of, I just think that we need to, for those who still want to wear their masks and feel the need to do that, we just need to respect that decision for those people and make sure that they, feel accepted and fine with that. But I agree that it should be optional at this point.
Great. Thank you. Maria? And then Pat?
Thank you. So yes, the numbers are down. I just, in voting to make the masks optional, I would just like to say that, we need to continue working to make sure that those numbers stay down. I think there's other measures that should continue that are not necessarily the masks, but removing the mask may give the optic that we're out of trouble and that this is not going to happen again. So we just want to make sure that we stay aware of the data. We continue collecting data regularly. I think within the schools, it's a little different than in the greater community because it's a high concentration of children that may or may not have to wear the mask, but they probably won't, and that there's not, it's a limited number of adults as well to enforce some of those regulations. So I would just encourage everybody to make sure that the policy for intentional hand washing continues, availability for disinfectant, the monitoring the incidence of COVID at every school level, reminding families to keep children home if they are ill or not feeling well, and advocating for the vaccine. I think Lawrence has done an incredible job at making the vaccine accessible and easy to get. And we should continue advocating for increasing that number, and especially those rates amongst the students and our children population, our young population. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Marta first, if you'd like to respond, and then go to Pat. And
I
would
Domenica?
just, so Naomi, you know, your roots are in research, my roots are in grassroots, right? And so outreach to me is very important, and I feel that the more we educate our community and continue to provide the information, the better it is. So I would respectfully request that you, as a board, maybe take a vote to make sure that you put these numbers on any flyers or anything that goes out by the schools department, so that way parents have papers that come to the house and has this number, that way they can call us and we can go to their homes and give them their vaccinations, or answer any questions that they may have, or we can even, you know, invite them to come over and be educated on how important it is to get children vaccinated. And we understand that there's still some children that are not eligible, but eventually it's going to come, and this is something that we're going to, you know, learn to live with, and it's going to be normal. But for now, we have to continue to educate. So I would ask that that number respectfully be put on, you know, any correspondence that goes out by the school department.
Yeah, absolutely. And luckily, I don't think we need a vote for that. We'll just, superintendent, we'll make sure we share that and make it publicly just known and distributed widely in our schools. So thank you. Pat, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to thank you for your diligence in making sure that our community is safe, and Martha and Mike, thank you for everything you've done. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the kindergarten. I don't know why. Maybe, you know, in my days at the LAE School, and the kindergarten was across my office. And I'm thinking, when the kids have the opportunity to really see the faces of their peers, it's going to be like normal school again, and a happy place. Mm-hmm. So, and I agree with you, Martha, that we need to continue being very diligent and watchful, and, you know, keeping our, you know, maintenance up and all that. But I think it's time for the kids to get to know one another, and for the mask to go away. I think about the flu. And you know, and your data shows that there was just one case of COVID this week. I'm not comparing the flu to COVID, because COVID is much more serious. But if you think about the flu too, we've had major outbreaks of the flu many years ago. And I remember schools being closed because staff and students, the large number of students and staff that were ill with the flu. So, again, it's, you know, diligence on our part, but I think it's time. I think it's time for the kids to get to know one another. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Domeli?
So I do think that taking the mask mandate down can be a risk to the cases going up again, but I think we can all agree that it has been a very hard year for not only students but teachers. And I mean, the numbers kind of do say it. I think it can be more under control now that the cases are down. But I do think that that vaccination should be more encouraged if they do get taken down.
I totally agree with you, and I think that if you look at, this is the right time to take away the mask because the numbers are low, and we've been working for the past, it's actually, as you say that, Pat, right, kindergartners haven't seen their peers for 2 years, right, because everybody's been wearing masks, so like those kindergartners that started when COVID started, they're in like second grade now, right, and they haven't even like really seen their friend's face fully. But I think that one of the important things is that numbers have shown to us that during the spring and summer months, the wave kind of goes down, and then we have to worry in September, October, November, December. That's when we see really December, January, February is when we see the numbers tick up. And what I can guarantee you, and I know that the mayor feels this way because we've had many, many meetings about this, we will not let our guard down. We will keep our eyes where we need to keep our eyes. We will look at numbers. We will have conversations. We will continue to do the outreach and the education part of it. And we will continue to fight. Mike and I are that type of, personalities that like, we want 100% vaccinated, right? So we know that we're not going to get it, but we're going to go for it. So I think that that's the important thing. And the mayor, he supports that because he wants the community, as he stated, to be safe. He wants the community to be safe, but at the same time, we have to think about mental health. We have to think about mental wellness. We have to think about people coming together again, because there's people that have not like been socially together for a long time. And just like children, I think seniors, I supervise, I'm the director of the senior center. I absolutely know what it's like. The seniors are missing our hugs and our kisses and everything else. And we were protecting them from, something that could kill them. But now it's time, because science doesn't lie. People, and it's been long, and there was times where we were getting calls like, take it away, stop, why are we still here? The numbers weren't there, but now the numbers are, so it's time to move on.
Thank you. Mike, just a question, appreciate you bringing up those sort of the cycles you're seeing, so anticipating the fall, December. What are some of the metrics you all look at, and as you think about the fall and coming winter, that are going to be sort of top of mind for you as you're advising the mayor on sort of, potential needing to wear masks again? Or I'm just curious what those metrics are that you all look at most closely.
Thank you. Great question. It's a little bit of everything that we do. So it's the testing data, how many people are getting tested. And I think we have a great sample, and we had a great effort to get multiple testing sites to the city of Lawrence, even towards the end, just to make sure that testing was everywhere throughout the entire city. Even though we're a small, dense city, we were everywhere. The vaccination rate, of course, is very important. And we worked very hard to push those vaccinations. And again, I'm proud to say, out of the 21 closest communities to the city of Lawrence, we're number one for our 30-plus population. Again, our most vulnerable population being vaccinated at almost 100%. So those numbers are very important. We still continue to push for the children. And there's one thing that will never happen. We're not going to take away the social determinants of health that cities like ours face. And we know that. And it goes to Martha's point of outreach. So when we look at the data, just even the case count data, this week we actually had a little celebration at our department head meeting. One, because we saw each other's faces for the first time, and we all smiled and laughed, and it was, to your point, Patricia, it was a great, great feeling, even amongst adults. But we celebrated a figure. We looked at the case count back in December of 2020, when we had about 12,000 cases. And I looked at what we have today, and I said, geez, we're pushing 300% increase since that time. But we were curious, how are we doing compared to every other city? So we took the 40 largest cities in Massachusetts, and we wanted to see what's their percent increase. How did Boston do, Somerville? And what we found, believe it or not, is Lawrence was number one in suppressing COVID-19 out of the 40 cities. We had about 290-something% increase, while the average in Massachusetts was 400 and something, and we saw as much as 700% increase in those 40 cities. So we watch the case count, we watch the medical data, of course, hospitalization, but we do this with a lens that recognizes that the social determinants are still there. We have dense living conditions. Our children we have a young population that's in school. We have communal living. We have intergenerational living. And we have a workforce that's very strong that has to go to work. So we're not going to let our guard down. We're going to continue to fight for our community, and we're going to continue to overcome those social determinants just like we have for the past year.
Great, thank you. And Superintendent, I guess other questions I have are more about the mechanics. So the board will make a decision tonight, could be immediate, take effect. How do we communicate? How do we communicate with families, let them know? I mean, it's 7:24 right now. It's do we make this immediate? Because I'm sensing the board is going in a certain direction, but how do we let families know? And that's sort of where my mind is at.
For sure. So in anticipation of this, we did have an internal meeting, which means that we would communicate via email and text to families and staff the decision of this board. In this case, if the will of the board is to not have mask mandates, we will communicate that first thing tomorrow morning. And of course, in the schoolhouse, you will see many people exercising that privilege right away, and then families will make their decisions moving forward.
Got it. Okay, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we remove the mask mandate for Lawrence Public Schools and make masking optional for teachers and students and all LPS personnel.
Okay, do I have a second?
Is that sufficient as a motion?
So let me make sure I hear it. Remove a mandate, but it's optional.
Yeah, because I do think if some people feel that they need to or want to wear it, they should be supported in that, so.
Great.
Can I add a comment? So families have been are aware that this vote, we're made aware that this vote is taking, I mean, I'm assuming that some families have to have that conversation at home with their children on whether or not, when they come back to school tomorrow, if they're told to remove their masks, they shouldn't or could. Are families going to have enough time to have that conversation at home, or do we need to give them a day? I mean, I'm asking on what did the notification say to families?
Sure, so the message was that this board would be convening today to further discuss and then make the recommendation moving forward. What the notice also said is that masks would remain in effect until this Friday.
So the vote we're taking is as immediate?
It would have to say effective Monday, right?
It could be effective tomorrow, Friday, Monday, it's up to you all.
But families were told by Friday.
It's in effect until Friday,
Okay.
with the understanding that you all would be taking a vote this evening.
I will imagine that so many people are so excited about this
Yeah,
that this will run like wildfire.
yeah.
So, I'm expecting that with votes today, we just like fly.
Yeah,
the
I would love to do
mask.
that.
I mean, anyway.
Do you want me to make the motion to make masks option? I think that's what I said, right? Remove the mandate and make it optional.
Yes.
That is really the gist of all of the feedback that I heard was on the side of making it optional. So I don't think there's much danger, to respond to your point, Maria, like no one who comes to school with a mask is going to be told they have to remove the mask. I just think I think if we do it tonight, it will get out there
yes.
very quickly.
And even the
Yeah.
other kids, the kids that will learn by tomorrow morning will tell the other friends, you don't have to wear it anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it will be okay.
Well, there's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Oh, I second.
Okay, we'll give it to the mayor, though, because
Okay.
it's,
Oh, yeah.
So, any further discussion on this? And again, just to clarify, Superintendent, as soon as this meeting or this vote is taken, there's going to be communication to families via text message, can you just repeat that one more time?
Sure, so tomorrow morning, we will send communication via email and text, so we send the text so that folks also look at their email with the communication.
Are we saying immediate, or are we saying, we're
Yes.
saying immediate?
Yes.
Okay.
Myriad.
Any other comments, questions?
I'm ready.
Ventura?
Pat, please.
Yes, would you please repeat the motion? How is it going to read?
So the motion is to remove the mask wearing mandate and make mask wearing optional in Lawrence Public Schools, all schools and buildings, effective immediately. Okay, hearing no more discussion, I'll do a roll call vote on this. Jess?
Yes.
Noemi?
Yes.
Mayor DePena?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Maria?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, so.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again.
Yeah. All right,
Ventura,
We should have a bonfire here.
can you imagine what the little ones are going to do
I
tomorrow
know,
at school?
I know. So I am, obviously, I voted for it, fully supportive of it, and I think just as, we have continued to be close with the city, Mike, Martha, just to stay in contact around, any metrics you're looking at, we're seeing. I mean, I just appreciated how closely we've been working together already, and that'll just be critical moving forward. And the other thing is, I know the motion said it, but just to reiterate to families, you can still have your child wear a mask. You can wear a mask. There's no stigma. There should not be a stigma. This is really a personal choice, and a personal choice you're making for your family, for your health. So just want to reiterate that loud and clear. Please, Mike.
Thank you so much. I just want to reiterate the fact we will continue to watch the data. That's not going away, and I appreciate you saying that. With the option of wearing masks, it is important that we recognize that there are still children who are immunocompromised. There's still children that may come to school that are sick, that may want to wear a mask, and they may be looking to protect an elderly family member who's not vaccinated. Many different circumstances, so we fully respect and advise that people, again, it's their choice, but make the choice that's right for their health and their family's health. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Superintendent, I'll turn it to you for the last item.
Thank you. So next, Assistant Superintendent Mary Toomey is going to give us a presentation on some expansions of some of our programs and grade configuration.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone hear me okay? Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me. That was very timely that I could take my mask off in order to present, so I really appreciate that. I've been asked to share with you some recent grade expansion news that we have that DESE approved for us, and wanted to give you the information and tell you a little bit about why this was necessary. So as you're aware, we have an alternative school in the district. We call it Rise Academy. It's trauma-focused. It addresses the functions of student behavior. It creates a safe and supportive learning environment, and students do access a Common Core aligned curriculum and a standards-based academic model. There was a recent relocation of our Rise Academy to a very spacious new location on Broadway in Lawrence, and Dan Rosetten is our principal of the Rise Academy. Most of you have met Dan and know that he does an incredible job with the work that goes on there. So the enrollment as of October 1, which is, that's our time when we take all of the statistics and data that DESE publishes. At that time, we had an enrollment of 79 students, and they were broken out in grades 9 through 12 by the information that's here on this demographic slide. In terms of male versus female, you can see how that breaks out. It's, more heavily enrolled with young men. And students with disabilities at that time were about 35% of the program. Multilingual learners, about 32%. And our high-needs students, most of them fitting into that category at more than 97%. The most recent enrollment data is at about 92 students who are on the rolls. On any given day, there's probably more likely about 66, 65 students who are either in person or absent. We have some other students who, for other reasons in terms of, DYS or DCF and different arrangements that they have, are not attending at the moment. We do have a cap of 100 students in the program, and also we have a cap of only 50% of the students should have an IEP, so that once you go over that 50%, in the alternative school, we have to make application for a therapeutic or public day school assignment, and that's not what we have for RISE. What we did ask DESE is that we'd like to expand RISE. We'd like to start a small middle school program, alternative program for students who are struggling, who may be court involved, who may have some other needs and issues, so that they can have very individualized attention and get on the road to success. And so we have been approved for that expansion, and also to start a very small pilot this spring for up to 5 middle school students. We actually just made the first transfer of a student just today. So we're starting that program up, and we wanted to tell you about that as we go. So that's the first part of the information that I wanted to give you. Any questions about RISE before I move on?
I do have a question, and thank you for the information and how it's presented. You mentioned the capacity right now is 100 students, and with the middle schooler, that would be 105, correct?
Right now, our capacity is at 100 total, so our pilot is only going to be up to 5 students so that we don't go over our maximum enrollment. Once we onboard an entire middle school faculty with all of the supports, and we plan our middle school for next school year, we will ask DESE to increase that enrollment cap once we have the middle school set up and ready to go. Right now, we're just going to engage in a pilot of up to 5 students, and we're going to use, so it'll be a combination. If we have 8th grade, it'll be an 8th, 9th grade combination, and the teachers will teach both grades together.
Okay. And you have the space, I will imagine.
Beautiful space. Yeah, that's definitely what I wanted to show you too, is, you know, a couple of pictures of where they're located now in that spacious new location. It's beautiful space on Broadway.
And how the students are selected to this program?
They're referred.
Okay.
So it's by application. Sometimes it's self-referral. You know, Dan has students who, you know, call him and say, I've heard about the program. I know I have a friend who's been in the program. You know, I really haven't been going to school. I'd like to get in the program. Can you help me? So our high school does make referrals, parents make referrals, and students, they self-refer as well.
And how do parents know about this opportunity?
In talking with the guidance folks at the campus and at the high school, it will be suggested if we think that the student's profile fits with the alternative school, if they're having difficulty with credit recovery and they're having some other issues, you know, related to social emotional learning, anxiety, behavior. You know, there could be a court-appointed youth counselor or someone else who's involved, and so that's how the referrals get made.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else about RISE?
I do have a question. So can you explain a little bit about the process of engaging with the family and so forth before the decision's made? And partly where it's coming from is, it'd be helpful to understand, like, grade 6 through 8, I mean, it sounds like you have an 8th grader that's starting with the program.
I believe he's a 6th grader, actually.
Okay, great, actually. So my question might be more relevant. So a 6th grader now coming into a program with high school students.
Yes.
Could you talk about what the sort of communication with the family and decision on the right, that this is the right placement? And then what's the day-to-day for that 6th grader now who's going to be with 9th through 12th grade kids?
So, you know, without getting too personal, because I don't want to identify the student naturally, right? But this was a student who had some significant issues in the homeschool and was tried in a different placement. And the parent was unable to help the child to attend on a consistent basis. And so through several additional meetings with the family, a tour was arranged. And so that would be the next step, is once the family feels like they're on board with trying this out, you know, then a tour is arranged. And so the family can get all their questions answered, and they can determine whether it's going to be an appropriate placement as they get this work underway. Now, for students who have an IEP, who have disabilities, students with disabilities, we also have to reconvene the team. And there has to be a whole team meeting to determine whether the placement is, first of all, appropriate. You know, obviously, we have to go for the least restrictive environment first. This is a much more restrictive environment. And then make sure that the family accepts that. They have to sign the IEP as the written contract, and they sign that in order for the child to, before the child can move into the program.
And sorry, so for that child in particular, I know there's going to be a middle school team that's being built,
That's
right,
correct.
to support kids. But for that child, for this year, or any other 4 kids that could be added, this, like, just from a, I don't know, like, it's a 6th grader. You know what I mean?
It'll
With,
be
like,
a
high
very
school kids, like-
individualized program.
Okay.
Dan will be working with the staff he has to create an individualized team, you know, versus when kids are having specials or they're having another piece, there'll be one teacher doing the English, another teacher doing the math, and so it'll be a very individualized program. I'm not sure how much they're actually going to do in common between a 6th grader and a 9th grader, probably very little. But right now, we just want to stabilize the student, have the student feel some success, And, they have lots of opportunities at RISE as well to get involved in some vocational aspects of community work. And so we're hoping this child finds something that they're interested in and that this leads to a very successful outcome.
No, thank you. Okay, let's keep moving.
All right, so the other piece I wanted to tell you about has a little introduction to it. And I needed to tell you why we have this piece happening for expanding our integrated pre-K classes. Just a little background on integrated preschool. We do offer a very specific curriculum. It's focused on social and emotional development. It's play-based. It's aligned to the Massachusetts Pre-K Common Core standards, and it is a half-day program. So 2 3/4 hours a day. We have an AM session. We have a PM session. It's inclusive. We welcome students with and without disabilities. That's why it's integrated. And it's required, right? Every district should be offering an integrated pre-K program because children, if they are found to have disabilities and that they qualify for an IEP, then when they turn 3 years old, we offer them a seat. And at that time, we can move a typical student in to a matching seat to be with that child. We have limited space in the district, as you all know. I don't think that's a surprise. Placement in a neighborhood school is not always possible because we don't have integrated pre-K in every one of our schools that has kindergarten on up. But we do try, and we're trying to do better around having pre-K in all of the neighborhoods, at least all of the zones where we're having our student support services happen right now. The range of services vary. We can have students who only require support for speech and language, and then we have other students that might be on the autism spectrum. So, it really varies in terms of the exact support that they have. The instruction and therapy and the frequency of service is all decided at the IEP eligibility meeting, and it's agreed upon in the IEP for those particular students. We had a makeover this year when we reset the Office of Student Support 2.5 years ago now. We brought the arena team back together. So parents only have to come in to us one time, and they have an arena team of evaluators who meet with the child. They meet also with the parent. Parent gives them information about developmental history. They have that all done now, so it's electronic. Parent uses a laptop to give that information. This is a photo from the Rollins School of the makeover that we had there this year. And so it's a play-based evaluation with a licensed school psychologist, a speech and language therapist, and also a speech and language pathologist, and also an occupational therapist, and when needed, a physical therapist, and any other evaluators who we might need. So we conduct those evaluations beginning at age 2-9. They start coming into us as early as 2.5 years old. Most of the evaluations we receive are from the early intervention providers, and sometimes we receive referrals from parents or doctors or caregivers. Last year, because we were mostly remote, we got through about 150 or a few more East evaluations virtually before we came back into school. So it was a little different doing them over Zoom, you can imagine, with a 2.5-year-old and trying to evaluate. But, kudos to the team for doing their due diligence. And we erred on the side of caution. So if they felt at all that the child was qualifying, then, they did go ahead and make that decision to qualify the child. This slide has a lot of numbers on it. I just want to take you through it and let you know what you're seeing here. Currently, right now, we have 20 full-time teachers teaching these 2.5-hour sessions. They each teach 2 sessions, and they have a para. And so there's 40 sessions of integrated pre-K. We house about 7 children in each session with an IEP, and we leave 8 seats available for typical students. So the match is 7 and 8. We try to cap the class at 15. That's our goal. That's what we try to do. So that gives us about 280 seats for students with disabilities and 320 seats for typical students. So this year, because of the additions that we've made, we have 600 seats total. We added this year 120 seats. And that was as a result of not doing as many evaluations last year as we would have in a typical year. Parents kept their kids an extra year out, so that has increased the number of evaluations that we're doing this year. And just the number of kids who just didn't enroll in school last year. Parents decided that they would either keep them in daycare or keep them at home, and remote wasn't an option that they wanted last year. And so what has happened as of the 18th of February, on the top yellow bar here you can see, is that we were down to just 33 IEP seats and just a little over 100 typical seats. But what's interesting and why I wanted to explain this to you tonight is that you can see that the Arlington Elementary School is brand new, just opening up a section just within the last week. They did not have pre-K, so DESE needed to approve us to expand. Their grade configuration has been K-4 for quite a while. When we first opened as Community Day Arlington, they were pre-K to 4, and now we're back to pre-K again. We have 1 teacher, 2 sessions. The Breen just added in the last week another new session, so that's helping us out. And LFA did not have any integrated pre-K until this year. They had different pre-K going on there. And so we took 2 of their pre-K teachers, and that allowed us to add 4 sessions total. So that's how we got up to having the seats, 600 seats for this year. And then this morning, I updated this slide, so you have last week's slide, so that I could show you that we're not at 33 IEP seats anymore. As of March 4th, we're down to 19 seats, and in the typical seats also coming down to 104. So as you can see, as each week goes on, we're using more and more of the seats, and even though we've added these additional 120 seats this year, we're still likely to run out of seats for students with disabilities in a very, very short time. So as you can see, last year, as the year ended, including the summer, we did 199. On a typical year, we'll do about 250 evaluations. On a very high year, we'll do 300. That's been the highest we've ever done. This year, with only 59% of the year done, we're already at 271. So you can see that we are going to exceed 300 easily this year. I'm hoping we don't get close to 400. We're averaging 45 evaluations a month. About 82% of the children are eligible for services. The potential is for another 180 referrals. And we're going to begin filling typical seats with IEP students, and we can request a waiver for that. We can also request a waiver for class size. We're hoping not to do that. We have LFA who's considering offering us another room, so we could, if we find a teacher, add another section. But we do believe that we're also going to need additional sessions for next school year, because these children come to us at 3, some of them stay in preschool for 3 years. So we understand that by enrolling this year, we're going to have them again next year, and we're going to have influx of more students coming in as well. Just some reminders here, and I also, on the right side of this slide, I wanted you to see, I send this data to the pre-K principals every week, or about every week, to show them where we are with the IEP seat allocation. And you can see that as of January, we had gotten down really low to only 11, and that's when Arlington Elementary stepped up, and Breen also added another teacher. And so with those 2 additional FTEs, that brought us back up to 41, and then we're back down again, using up all of those seats. We're required, as I said, to offer integrated pre-K to all of the students who qualify for an IEP beginning at age 3. Waivers are available when we're unable to balance the ratios of identified versus typical, or when there's a need to increase class size. So we're just about at that point. Our district leaders have been very willing to open new classes, very much appreciate them helping us. And as I said, LFA just this week is talking about opening up another class. This is an anomaly. It's due to the pandemic. So it will probably work itself through in another year. And we appreciate the support and understanding of our pre-K educators. We understand that this is, difficult, especially getting new students in all of the time. And our early intervention screening team likely evaluating up to 400 children by June. They evaluate in the mornings. They use Fridays to write their evaluations. The following week, the parents are on Zoom for their IEP meeting, and they have to report on their evaluations. So that team is going. So we really appreciate all the work that they're doing as well. Happy to answer any questions that you might have about integrated pre-K.
Great, thank you. Any questions, board members? Yep.
You, Maria, can go first.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a suggestion in terms of thinking, solving potential issues with capacity or with just for families that need a full-day program, those children that are currently in childcare because they need, the parents are working full day. I mean, I think this is a good opportunity for the district to collaborate with community providers, early education providers, and just try to help the families in any way possible. There is space available in those community providers that maybe, and again, I'm not going to go into specifics of how it would work, but I think it's a good opportunity for collaboration and with the purpose of increasing capacity and serving more children and families around this. There's also, potential for mixed funding, and provide additional services if in collaboration with agencies. So just wanted to put that out there as a thought.
Thank you.
Jess?
Mary, how many kids enter in kindergarten every year, more or less?
About 500.
About 500. So does that mean that we're capturing most of the kids who would be eligible for pre-K? If we're going to be up to 600 seats in pre-K, right, and only 500 enter in kindergarten, are we capturing most of who's eligible in the city to have pre-K?
Yeah, it's an anomaly this year because we're bringing in kids who stayed home an extra year.
Okay.
So they're not only just coming in at 2.5.
Okay.
We're testing many more kids at 3.5, even 4 years old,
Okay.
who we should have probably tested last year, during the pandemic. So this is going to work itself out, and it will get back to those even numbers where we have the right numbers of FTEs and sections of kids. But we just need another year to work our way through this.
My point was more I think that the benefits of preschool, right, are super clear through all the research and data. And I'm just wondering, our goal, I would assume eventually in the city is we'd want every kid who's eligible for preschool to be enrolled in some kind of preschool program. Are we hitting that? Are we, or do we still have children in our community who are eligible for preschool, whether they're special needs or not?
We typically have a wait list for kids who are typically developing.
Okay.
And what we've done in the past is we have told families that we enroll those children starting at age 4.
Okay.
This year, because we have wanted to keep the balance and the ratio, and we've opened more programs, we have lowered that age. So we're allowing those kids to start at age 3 this year, typical kids. And we also don't have much of a wait list this year,
right,
if at all, because we're taking those typical kids as fast as we can get them because of the number of identified kids that keep coming in. And just because a child qualifies, and we do have an IEP in place, the parent is not under any obligation to enroll their child. They may decide to enroll the child somewhere else in a community provider or to do something, or to keep their child home an additional year. But they wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. So they don't all enroll, but they are enrolling at very high numbers this year. And I believe it's a result of what we experienced last year with the pandemic.
But ideally, that's something we'd like to see continue.
Of course, we want all the children.
Yeah.
We just also want all the space. So, Cynthia is going to buy us a school, I think. I think that's what she told me recently.
Good.
Not to worry. She's got a nice little schoolhouse already for
I
me.
have some suggestions.
Great.
Other questions, Pat?
I have a suggestion.
The General Donovan, Pat. Are we going with the General Donovan?
You knew I was going to say
Holy
the General
Rosary.
Donovan.
How did I know?
But also, as the new schools are being built and they're going to come online, the Lala would become available.
Perfect.
And that would be the perfect spot for a pre-K
Absolutely.
situation there. And maybe we need to start thinking ahead. You know, it's going to happen,
Yes.
you know, 4 or 5 years down the road, and numbers will increase, so it's something to put in the back of our heads and to plan for.
It is, and, you know, I don't want to bring it up, but, you know, we would love to have full-day pre-K.
Well,
So, I mean, that goes without saying. I mean, all of these children, especially our children with disabilities, can benefit from being in a longer day program. And, you know, the space restrictions just don't allow that right now. So, at some point, we're gonna get there. But it's a wonderful program. You know, it's just, it's great. They're doing great work, and the kids are very happy in our pre-K programs.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, the final item on our agenda is approval of the February 9th, 2022 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll just say all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, one abstention, Maria. Great. All right, thank you very much. Our next meeting is Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. At this time, I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Let me give that one to the mayor. All right. Do I have a second? You got in there quick. I have a second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, we're now adjourned. Thank you.